Sounds good.
Right, welcome everybody.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for joining today for the next session in our Designing for Success series. This is called Future Ready, the Role of Culture in a Technology-Driven Practice. I'll give a little presentation overview, introduce today's guests, and then we'll get started with today's topic. And just want to say at the start, we encourage folks to ask questions and use the chat throughout today's webinar. We like to keep these pretty conversational, so feel free to add any questions or comments to the chat or to the Q&A as we go along. All right. So creating a thriving technology-driven architectural practice requires more than just the latest tools and software. It demands a strong and adaptive culture. In this insightful webinar, we will explore the vital importance of culture in embracing and leveraging technology to revolutionize the architecture profession. You will discover how a collaborative, open-minded environment can drive innovation, improve project deliverability, and enhance design quality. We're very excited to feature Mercedes and Andy Robert, the visionary founders of Slantis. Known for the groundbreaking work in integrating technology with architecture, Mercedes and Andy will share their experiences and insights on how culture can be a game changer for your practice. Join us to learn practical strategies for fostering a culture that not only welcomes technology, but thrives on it, setting up your firm for success in a rapidly evolving industry. All right, so our guest today, we have Evelyn Lee. Evelyn is the founder of the practice of architecture. She's been on the client side for over a decade and has spent the last 5 years in tech helping to create exceptional employee experiences while growing the business. She's a startup advisor and fractional COO to small and medium-sized business firms. She's the founder of Practice of Architecture and the host of the podcast Practice Disrupted. Joining us today, we also have Andy Robert. Andy is a professional architect from ORT University in Uruguay. She lived in Germany and pursued graduate studies in Dessau, where the former Bauhaus was located. Today, she is the CEO of Slantis, co-founded in 2015 with her lifelong friend Mercedes, and willing to disrupt the way architecture works. She's very energetic, curious, and entrepreneurial, and is actively involved in events that advocate for women as leaders. She is Beltran and Jamie's mom, a vegan, and a lifelong learner. Joining us today, we also have Mercedes, who is a licensed architect and entrepreneur specializing in innovation and technology. She received her degree from the Faculty of Architecture in Uruguay and also studied at the ENSAG in Grenoble, France. Additionally, she graduated in digital fabrication from MIT. After working at Jean Nouvel's studio in Paris and leading multiple developments in Montevideo, she co-founded Slantis in 2015 with her lifelong friend Andy, where she leads innovation, operations, and strategy. When she's not working, she enjoys art, skating, and spending time with her family. All right, without further ado, I'd love to hand it over to our presenters to go ahead and get started with today's topic.
Thanks so much, Bo. Hi, Andy. Hi, Mercedes.
Hello. Hi.
We're so grateful to have you on here with Designing for Success at Acelab. So as Bo mentioned, we do keep this very informal. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat. And if you want to join us here on camera, please feel free to raise your hand throughout. So Bo gave a brief interview of kind of both of your bios. Did either one of you want to chime in and say a little bit about what Slantis is and what you all do?
Sure. So hi, first, thanks Ev for the invite and for having us here, and thanks for to everyone joining. We're excited to be here and once again be sharing our story, hopefully to inspire some few folks so we can spread technology and collaboration all over. So Slantis was born as a very basic traditional outsourcing firm, but very rapidly we realized that technology is the big enabler of kind of enhancing the architecture profession, and architects being a traditional career have not been using technology to its fullest, and that is impacting not only the delivery of our buildings but also how we are practicing. So we started doing outsourcing, which is kind of intriguing and interesting because we were doing mainly the production part, whereas technology has the biggest impact. And rapidly we realized that technology could really just separate architects from how we were practicing for the past 5,000 years, basically. So what we do right now is team up with busy architectural firms to develop their projects with high-end technology, so we can help them develop design, development, construction documents, and help them succeed through a various different way of developing projects.
Definitely. We like to say we make technology happen for architecture, and that ranges from production to BIM consulting or just like high-end fabrication shop drawings.
Great. So thanks for everyone who chimed in. Eric from Chicago, Luz from Oakland, California. You're nearby me. Mercedes and Andy are in Uruguay. If you haven't picked up on their accents, then you're wondering where they are dialing in from. So thank you for dialing in from there. So I want to go ahead and launch the first poll question, Bo or Jennifer, that really talks about what are the biggest challenges that your firm faces right now in integrating new technology. And one of the reasons why I actually brought the Slantis individuals on is because they are experts in technology, but they are also the first ones to tell you that, you know, technology is, and the adoption of technology and firms using technology and the innovation required to use that technology does not come from just introducing the tool to the firm. And we're just going to ultimately talk about the importance of a learning culture that you have to set up in order to be successful integrating new technologies as they come on board, and developing them into your own processes. So Brian Bishop limiter, not knowing what the latest might be and how to implement it. Okay, so maybe that's something that we can address along the way. So poll question number one, I think, Andy and Mercedes, this is right along what we want to talk about, kind of difficulty in aligning technologies with the firm goals and resistance to change within the team. And if you look at the top two responses, you can kind of see, hopefully, how it actually relates back to firm leadership, but also how it relates to just an overall culture and a need for innovation within an organization. So I want to talk, Andy and Mercedes, how would you define what it means in the context of architecture practice, like what it means to develop a firm culture? How do you guys define culture?
That's a very interesting question.
Fine. I would say like culture is a little bit like temperature, like it's the compounded of every action and every attitude and every little thing everybody does every single day at a certain organization. So like it's not static at all. It just like gets built on a daily basis, and it fluctuates from day to day. But like as a general rule, if you have like a constant average, like even if some things fall a little bit apart from that average, is like the real culture of your company. So it's not something that you create, it's something that happens, and it happens with the actions of every single person that's within the company. So like the invisible systems that you create for those actions and those attitudes to happen, and for people to embrace like certain behavior, let's say around change, is the culture. I don't know, like it wasn't prepared, but it's very hard to determine because it's not a thing. It's something that's constantly evolving, and it's very hard to create, and it's very fragile, and you gotta maintain it like on a daily and like hourly basis.
I would add to what Mary's saying is that us being entrepreneurs, our energy is very high usually, and we are really looking into the future constantly and thinking, what are we going to do next and how, and that when the team was very small, translated directly into everyone that was near us. But when we started growing, and for the people that are not there, like we've grown from us to working from Uruguay, which is 6,000 miles away from the US, and serving architectural firms, to almost 100 people. The question is very different in a very small team, where the team at the beginning is directly impacted by our energy and our way of doing things, where now we need to think kind of reverse engineering on how and what was working at that time that we want to keep as a core and essence, and the entrepreneurial spirit for sure, and how we translate that into scalability. And that is a whole different question. And that also added or into the mixture of what Mary was saying, like, how do we talk about change? How do we refer to innovation? How do we position ourselves for thinking differently or looking up to the same thing in a different aspect? So I think it really became a key aspect. It was really a key aspect from the very beginning, but at the first time it happened naturally, and now we needed to sit down very consciously and intentionally and design it to keep the very essence that brought us here.
Yeah, definitely. Like, that's an amazing point, because our essence remains untouched. Like the energy, like the ambition for changing the industry, like the belief that things can be done better and there's like more room for better processes and better design, it's still there. But like culture changes because it does on a daily basis, on a, like, again, like it changes all the time. So if we see backwards, and I was like, this is a funny story because I was checking emails like from the first years we launched Slantis, and our emails did not have emojis. And I was surprised by that.
Really?
I didn't tell you that, but it was yesterday. I saw like a very old email, like 2016, and our emails were kind of, I don't know, like emojiless. Let's put it that way. But the essence of the emails were the same of that the essence of today's email. Even if today's emails are more colorful and they do have emojis and they do have like some certain ways of communicating, and that's because we were able to package that within our culture and make it an artifact of it and a tangible action, like to be able to materialize the essence of what we want to build. So like the essence is keeps rolling and keeps transforming and keeps being like the roots of everything, but the culture changes. It changes like because you find ways of improving it, because you adopt new ways of doing things, because you refine how to behave around change. So you gotta feed that constantly.
Yeah, and I think, like another way to the way that you guys talk about essence, I think would be, is like how we specifically talk about like values, like what is the values of the company, and the values and how you all the way down to how you communicate with one another, even through emojis, right? And being entrepreneurial and trying on continuous improvement and all those things, like that is what remains consistent, and that but the culture in and of itself continues to adopt and change beyond that. And what's interesting is I think there's a lot of vocabulary in HR when you hire somebody new about being a fit. And if you talk to people in HR and people operations, especially in the tech industry, they stopped using a fit because you don't want somebody who is one, it's kind of like-minded thinking, right? You get a lot of group think when you're bringing in somebody who fits, but the culture is organic and it evolves with every new team member you bring on. So what is, as long as the values remain the same, then I think they'll contribute to the values and the core energy of the company. But even more broadly, we've stopped talking about fit. And I think to that extent, when the pandemic happened, I hear a lot of leaders saying culture disappeared during the pandemic. And I was like, no, culture never disappeared during the pandemic. It evolved and it changed, and it is what it is, but it never went away. And that's like a very like I guess the most vivid thing I can say about how they saw culture change, right? And
Right,
how
right.
it's organic and keeps adapting.
As I hear you, for me is, so culture for me, and this maybe it's coming from our entrepreneurial background, but like you set a goal that you want to achieve, and the culture is kind of the filming behavior that you could see on how you're going to achieve that goal. And we are in Uruguay, and especially where our office is, it's incredibly it's surrounded. We are like really surrounded by technology companies. Uruguay is usually referred as the Silicon Valley of Latin America. So on the top floor, we are right now sitting on the 23rd floor, and on the 24th, which is the last floor of the tower, there's a company that it's almost $1 billion in revenue. And they sell for the United States too. And we talk a lot about the different type of culture to achieving certain results. So for us, culture is, you set a goal for your company, and the culture should be reflecting on people's behaviors, the how you are achieving that goal, and how you're setting up those safe boundaries and healthy boundaries to allow people to move and navigate through the company as you are pushing for those goals. And I think that is critical for it's just, you have a very clear why, and the culture is like your how, part of your how, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So thank you for that further explanation. If anyone has any questions for Andy and Mercedes, I am keeping an eye on the chat. I wanted to pop up, Bo, if we could pull question 2 for everyone. How would you describe your firm's current culture regarding innovation and technology adoption? And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but what was so interesting is I brought on Andy and Mercedes to the podcast to really talk about like what is the future of technology. Brian, to your point, to understand like, you know, knowing what the latest is going to be and how to implement it. And the first thing that they said to me is like, well, you can't implement it unless you kind of don't have a process. And to have a process, you need to have a culture around testing and piloting to build that out. So again, it kind of goes back to you can't do any of this unless you have the culture in place as a mechanism for it to happen. So, Bo, I don't know if we have a decent response on the poll. Proactive and always seeking new tools, open to new ideas, but cautious of implementation. So I guess my question, kind of in line with those findings, both for you, Mercedes, and Andy, is like, what type of mechanisms in place do you have to create a culture that is always seeking what the new tools are? And then how do you go about piloting that, especially if it means taking people off of billable work on a project to try out something new?
That's a good question. So I think we have a few slides. Mary is going to share
on it.
Yeah.
Okay. We are, and we had this conversation several times before with you, Evelyn. The hourly rates somehow attempt against the added value that architects can bring to the table, because some of those expenditure of hours are creating an incremental value for your company. So if you are spending time, or just between brackets, right, like spending time in developing or iterating to figure out how to improve your project delivery process. For example, in the short term, that could look like a loss of billing and direct impact into the revenue. And again, we are business owners. We are really much aware of this and really conscious about that. But if you have very clear the long-term or midterm goal and you're willing to invest that time on the iteration process, because nothing that it's truly remarkable comes at first shot. So you need to create that space to iterate, and that sometimes in our practices is very difficult because you're being billed by the hour. So it's kind of narrowing down that space to iterate. So we like to say that we are very aware of this process, kind of like design process, which I think most of architects are, because we are designers. So designing anything and even culture takes time and iteration and sitting down and thinking and just figuring out a way to make it work. Especially for technology or to use the right tools. I think it happens just the same. So I think that what we've done very differently is kind of creating that context and that space, though costing us a lot of money at some points because the outcomes were not so straightforward, let's say.
Yeah, and brains. So like what Annie mentioned on like being able to innovate requires lots of things, but like as a general rule, like two main things, which is doing things. So you gotta make time for doing things, because you cannot improve and create better ways if you're not grounded on what the reality. And then also like creating time in order to, like, great ideas take time to execute properly and to try and to validate. So I think part of what we do is create time and room for trying new things. And by that, I don't mean like have a research and development team in place. It's like we try to do that and we try to foster that on a personal level. Like every Slanter has, let's say, like 2 hours a week in order to support a support project, and like try to create something new or to improve a process. And you can be within the people team and you can be on one of the projects. You can be on a production team and you can be on one project. You can be on a BIM consulting team and be on one project. So like you don't need to fundamentally change what you do, but you need to fundamentally change the way you approach the creation of time for trying new things within every team member organization and pushing towards action. So like the only way to create change and improve things is by doing. So I think like we're both great doers. So like we like fostering everything, but that's true. But so we want to foster people to do things and try new things and get challenged by the fact that they need to be thinking of how to improve workflows and how to improve things and how to create better design. So like with that in mind, we do have like different strategies for that, and they're all like tangible, and I would say like office artifacts or things we do that you can like see we do, or that you can record as Andy was mentioning.
Do you see our screen?
Yeah, there's some black bars on some of the going across some of the things.
We're showing
No, they just said
there?
Yeah.
There?
Yeah, that's more clear.
Awesome. So we'll start by the obvious because we are architects. When we needed to design, so this, what is seen on screen is our office space, one of our office space. We have 3 offices. This is the headquarters, which is where we are right now sitting in Uruguay. when we needed to design our office, we were like, we want to foster collaboration and cross collaboration between different teams, which we've heard time and again that diverse teams thrive, and in comparison to teams that are not diverse, they just break all records in productivity and efficiency and hitting goals. And I included myself. Sometimes I think about diversity in gender or race, and we never think about different departments or areas within our company. So we were really intentional in designing a space that could allow different areas of our company to intersect with each other intentionally. So we have all teams, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but we have all teams sitting together or like in these pods that we created, the hexagonal pods, looking at each other. So we could create this space where people are talking to each other and even seeing each other while working. And they're hot desks too. So we have a finance person and a marketing person and a salesperson and an architect, and all that mixture creates amazing synergy, like things that we've never seen before. And this is because the space is at the service of this cross-pollination between different teams. This is the obvious stuff because again, we're designers and architects, but this has been a major game changer in since we moved to the office.
Yeah.
The other one that we do or use a lot is internal communication platforms. And by this, we mean intentionally using our communication platforms as cultural spaces rather than just announcements or unilateral communication spaces. Is that a word?
I think so.
But make it really a conversation and a space where people can bring themselves fully. We use Slack.
Yeah.
This is not advertising
Ad promoting.
An ad.
But we really use Slack, and we found in Slack a really powerful tool to be able to express ourselves in the most authentic way. And that has brought, again, like amazing synergies that usually like the challenge of hybrid brings.
For sure. And then also like this is something I guess everyone can start doing right away, like without buying anything new, without like any like big change. So we get together once a week, the whole company, like no matter where you're at, no matter what you do, like forward, no matter in which team you are, we get together once a week, like for at least half an hour. So we can just like be in the same virtual room. And that like communication bed and just like even like being 100 people company, just like allowing everyone to be in the same room for at least half an hour and exchange some things, whether it's like company updates or just like presentations from the team on things they've been working on. It's an example of an action that it really adds and makes a statement on what you think it's important. And why like it's worth it to stop working for half an hour and see everybody's faces and celebrate the fact that we're together in the mission of revolutionizing the industry. So it kind of sets the tone for what you think the right culture should be, and then culture happens. But it allows you to like to have a clear statement and direction on for us this is important. So we want to make room for this to happen.
And I like to add like intention behind things, like this meeting that we do every Wednesday. It's a vivid reminder of our why as a company. And we've studied many great leaders, from Indra Nooyi. She was the CEO of Pepsi for a long time, and amazing women leader, and many others. And they all share this constant alignment of their why, and just remind them why we're here, like why is it that we come to work every day, why we are on this together, why we want to share and just be better at what we're doing. So this spaces or internal communication platforms serve as a channel, but the intention behind this just this is why we're here, this is what we're trying to accomplish, and it's really powerful. Sometimes it's kind of overseen, but this is really powerful, and we've been doing it since the very beginning. And as the company grew, it started placing some challenges along the way, and we've been fine-tuning it, but right now it's rolling amazingly. We just had one yesterday, and it was really great. And again, this is not a space where we usually share like big updates or strategic updates about the company, but it's mainly for exchange and just reminding why we're here, just values, essence, collaboration, sharing the great work we're doing.
Yeah, and within that meeting, we also have an MPU, which stands for mini project update. So somebody on the team, on whatever team, prepares a short presentation, like a 10-15 minute presentation, with a quick overview. Sometimes it's a deeper one, sometimes it's a more technical one, sometimes it's a funnier one of what you're doing, and then they share it with the whole company. So like that's another statement for us. Being good communicators is important for us, like facing the challenge of being out there and giving a presentation, or just like sharing what you've been up to and what your challenge is important. So like, again, like that's another culture statement, which you can start doing for free tomorrow. But yeah, like it's good to share some of the things we do that are powerful, yet doesn't require a big change on the dynamics that you already have.
Yeah, I think so many, I mean, I think more firms have been adopting this kind of all hands, you know, whatever you want to call it, right? These weekly updates. And they started, they're actually, I feel like some of them are remnants of something that was started during the pandemic, all on Zoom, and now has like moved into the office, right? You know, one of the questions specifically was like, how do you identify new tools? I feel like, you know, a lot of the time these are kind of project updates, but like you said, there are options, there's the ability there to like for people to share something new that they've seen, or, you know, and maybe even talk about whether or not like, you know, is that something that the broader firm wants to like pilot or prototype or test, or like depending on kind of the reaction that you get from everyone. Is that a good option to begin to like elevate various different tools that are coming out and share like what the capabilities are?
Yeah, definitely. So like that we channel like we have like 2 distribution channels, if you will, for that. So like one's our weekly newsletter, in which you receive, like you feed information from the whole team, and then like distribute that to the whole team on a weekly basis. So like that's like our internal newsletter, which goes out every Monday. And then so like that's one channel, and then the other channel we do have it's support projects. So like we call that every project that is internal, that is not necessarily like a client-based project. And those projects, so they're led by Maru, and they have like a classification on whether if they are in-house, whether if they're for out-house clients, whether if are innovation projects, or if they are just like learning and knowledge projects. And those are, let's say, like open, so anyone can submit an idea. We are trying to get more picky about how you frame that project, because like, to be honest, like something I'll share with the people who want to do this or are doing it is, at first we were doing just like, hey, throw your idea here, like we'll take it. But then you need to work a little bit on your idea for it to be properly defined, and then for somebody else to be doing something with it. So we do have like some frameworks for that, just like problem finding framework in which you define a problem properly and elegantly, then we do have like a kind of template in order to submit your idea. So you gotta be specific about the goal, about what you think it's important, about like what you think it would entail, like if it's going to be more a disruptive discovery or more an incremental one. So it's just like trying to like bring some words that are important and we believe need to be used on a common language and an everyday use, in order to be able to like identify an idea when it goes by and be able to grab it and then to put it somewhere where you or somebody else can do something about it.
Yeah. There's a quick question that I wanted to make sure we do get answered is, does every member of your team turn their cameras on during the check-in? And I would call it less of a check-in, right, and more like a meeting. And do you insist that they turn on their cameras? I have my own thoughts on that. I would love to get your guys' opinion on that.
So the answer is no. Not everyone, but we encourage it and prefer people turning on their cameras.
Yeah, we think it's important. Like,
yes.
We think it's important. We think it's important everybody's there. It's totally okay if you're doing something or whatever and you cannot turn your camera on. But just imagine going in a Zoom call with 100 people and all cameras shut down. Then it won't be the same as the same meeting with everybody with their camera on. So it's just like a matter of understanding, like your camera makes the difference. So yeah, so like we don't force anyone to turn their camera on. We encourage that to happen. And like when all cameras are turned on, like usually meetings are better because even you can see everybody's reaction to, I don't know, like news or just like jokes. So yeah. It's not a meeting, totally. But yeah, I mean, we gotta be honest with the fact that no, we don't have like 100% camera on.
No,
but we target that.
But the majority, they're definitely with cameras on.
Yeah.
Like I would say that probably from 100 people, like 10 don't have their cameras on, which is a
fair
kind of like fair.
Yeah.
Can I make a little bit of a distinction though? So is that just for all hands or is that a recommendation for any meeting that you have?
Well, for every like client meetings, like
well, or
yeah.
even internal, like an internal huddle, Slack huddle, for instance.
I think that's the interesting part about culture. We never had to clarify that.
Yeah.
For everyone, it's a must to have their camera on because out of respect of if you're participating, then you are present on the meeting. We never had to clarify that.
Oh yeah. Like,
and everybody turns them on.
Yeah, I think we've done it from the beginning. So
yeah,
I think like now everybody is remote fluent. But we were remote before 2020. So I think we started that way, like being remote camera on since 2015 or 2016. So like I think it's part of how we operate.
And it's never been a conversation.
No,
but what are your thoughts, Evelyn, on that?
Do you want to hear my? I feel like we usually agree. So this is going to be one area that we probably don't agree. So at Slack, it was all cameras on all the time. I think, that was like the default that everybody went to at the beginning of the pandemic when everyone was using Zoom and what other form is. But then Zoom fatigue became real, right? As, with back-to-back meetings, we were just, our culture was very much, we're going to try something. And if you guys aren't feeling it, let us know. And if we need to change, so be it, we'll change. So as things progressed, it went to like not cameras on. So now we don't require cameras on all the time. I do feel like that, but there are moments, right? Like when we had team meetings, like most people ended up like informal team meetings, most people tend to turn their cameras on. If it's a really quick, like, can you jump on and let's share a screen together, then I would say that we don't tend to turn cameras on. So it really ultimately it depends on the context of the meeting, but we just wanted to acknowledge that there was such a thing as Zoom fatigue, and we wanted to give people the option to opt out.
Sure. Totally. I guess the difference should be, or at least what I think is, if you're in the meeting, it's for a reason and you should be present. I think the challenge or the tricky part is when you have cameras off and you're not like fully present. But it's kind of like two different things. Like having the camera off doesn't mean that you're not present in the conversation. So, and sometimes like the tricky thing is thinking that if the camera is on, then you're paying attention and part of the conversation.
Sure.
So for me, the important part is just being present in if you're in that meeting, it's because it's important that you're there and you should be participating actively.
Right. And I would say like the difference there is maybe you guys have meetings that matter versus a lot of us, especially when we're getting pulled into big like when we got acquired by Salesforce and we're pulled into big organizations. I had a lot of meetings show up on my calendar where like I had no role in the meeting. I just needed to be there for 5 minutes out of the whole 60 minutes to hear that like whatever like slide I prepared for somebody else was presented like correctly. And if it was, then so I think, I think it's a difference. I think right there is like just a difference in culture. And I would say Slack has a wonderful culture, Slantis has a wonderful culture, and that's just two different ways that they're showing up.
Totally.
But I didn't want to interrupt your flow. And if there's any other questions, there are, but I think there were more comments. So one question was, do you provide physical pinup spaces during the life of a project? And this is an interesting question because you guys are working remote with a lot of architecture firms. So you're like the other half of your team, right, is never present. So do you guys actually provide physical pinup space in your offices?
So if our clients want to come down here, they always have a spot. There we have spare room, and we always encourage our clients to come in. No client has come yet, only like board advisors and like friends in the industry. So like we always show like the first team from one of our clients that come would be the first comer, the first one. So that's one thing, and the other thing is we do provide on-site support, and that's like the other way around, just like sending people from our offices to our clients' offices for a certain period of time. So we do get like that 100% live connection with our clients there.
So I wanted to go on, if there's any questions that we're not covering in the audience, please. And I feel we went a little bit off of topic, right, into meetings. Did you guys want to continue on with like the importance of internal communication platforms and how you create that culture that you guys are talking about?
Yeah, I think we can keep like going over it.
This is Slack. Together with a platform that it's called Small Improvements that is connected. So these are badges. What Mary is saying is like super easy, and these are peer-to-peer recognition. So there you can see like problem solver. Quick disclaimer is we are native Spanish speakers, so it's so our whole Slack is bilingual, like between English and Spanish. So it says like, thanks for trying 1,000 options and solutions and finally nailing it on the Autodesk Cloud client issue, whatever. And that's the one problem solver. And the amazing thing is, you can see there, Martin gave it to another Cilantro Seb, and this pops up for everyone on the channel of Slack of the company channel. So it's really cool, like for me that I'm really not aware of what's going on, to see like people helping others and then people celebrating others. Like this creates an amazing kind of chain of how you call it, like kindness chain.
Kinds of kindness.
Yeah, kind of chain of kindness, and like being grateful and recognizing others for their help, and collaborative spirit, which is amazing. So this is only a part of it, just like using those tools that we were talking about to create culture. And these are very simple things, like this is just a native integration from this platform that is called Small Improvements into Slack.
Yeah, what I love about the name of it is Small Improvements. I think what we're doing is you're setting up a culture, one, of people being applauded for trying new things, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's you're emphasizing that you want them to try new things, and when it goes well, and I think, in our channels, even when it doesn't go so well, we kind of acknowledge, thank you for trying new things. We learned from this experiment. Keep putting yourself out there. So I think that's important
Yes.
from the leadership down to the managers to kind of encourage others to continue to try new things.
Yeah.
And like there's something we've been talking about and working on, which is like making visible mistakes and making sure that once you screw it, then you just like work on top of that to make it better. So we've been reading about it, like talking about it, because it's hard for people. Like, since we're entrepreneurs, then you like go for the risk and just like dive right into it, and you don't care much. But it's hard like to tell people like it's okay if you screwed up, and if you make a mistake, then it's fine as long as you build on top of that. So something I did, it's not like an official element yet, but something I did with a small team is, so we had a meeting that went really, really, really bad. So we had like a retro meeting after it, and I was just like looking for a way in order to like partially make fun of the moment and make kind of create that sculpture of the screw in somehow, and take actions after that meeting in order to improve meetings. And we built, so like it was a rough moment with the fact that we just like agreed that the meeting wasn't great, and it wasn't our standard level meeting. But then we came up, so we designed kind of a grape, like a fruit with paper out of the meeting, because I don't know why we talked about grapes and it was a little bit funny. So we ended up like having a small sculpture of grapes in one of the meeting rooms. And it was a little bit like to make a monument out of the mistake, and also like laughing a little bit about it, because like that makes you better and it gives you opportunity for improvement. Demystifying the fact that you can say I screwed it up, or we did horrible as a team, and that's fine, because like if you always do right, then you're not pushing yourself. And then yeah, just like try to break a little bit the idea of mistakes as something bad, and use them as like catalysis for better things to come. That's a story.
Yeah. Well, I want to make sure, I know you guys have some additional slides that you want to share, and I don't want to drive the conversation away too much from what you are planning on. So what else do you have for us?
Team building events. I could roll since forever about this. So I'm just passing. We are in 3 weeks. We just announced this yesterday. We always have a birthday party for the company that happens on Labor Day. But here it's not Labor Day because our Labor Day is in May. So we take advantage of our clients being out of the office and celebrating our birthday. This is last year's. Again, like this is intentionally designed to just everything that we do, and the team bonding events that we do, and everything is designed to create this safe space for mistakes, for encouragement, for being friends with change, with innovation. Just screwing up, it's just so much part of innovating as it is the wins. And this is intentionally designed. So if you're wondering or thinking about technology tools and what came out of the fall of people being resistant to those tools and resistant to change, this starts here, which counterintuitively doesn't sound related, but they're extremely related because, like you said, people mindsets for change, for innovation, for making mistakes. So then when they're trying out new tools or even exploring using new tools, this is that idea, just simple idea of exploring new tools is coming out of this event. So again, this seems that it's not related, but it's like really, really related.
So what if I was, my question to you is, so we have some firm leaders in here, but I feel like we also have, just looking at some of the names that are recognized, some younger people too, right? That might be stuck in a company that isn't so innovative and they don't have leaders that are giving them the time or the space to do these things. So what is something that you could recommend for them so that might help drive some positive change in the organization when it comes to them trying to make the company a little bit more innovative and thoughtful about the tools they use going forward?
I would say maybe this is not a typical traditional approach, but I would say, like, if you're convinced of what you're proposing and convinced that that could make a change, just do that iteration, or at least try to iterate to make it work, maybe outside of your working hours. And once you have a clue that it's working, then bring it on to the leadership team and say, like, hey, I've been trying, and you'll be really respected for trying out. And then you have a greater chance of your leaders listening to you and implementing it.
Yeah, and like definitely on the leadership side, but like also I think like some small and powerful strategies can start like being implemented, like even from bottom up and sometimes top down for sure. But just like, I don't know, like finishing every week, every team needs to propose like a new idea or something they've learned. So like you just make a quick round and everybody needs to share something they've learned or share something they thought about could be improved. And then like it's like riding a bicycle. You gotta make sure you kind of do a little bit more push the first time. That we were chatting about this with one of our teams. Like I was talking with one of our leaders and she was, well, it's hard for me, like even within the Slantis context, to have everybody on board and try to innovate in some sense. And what she will be doing is starting a quick round on their Friday meeting, and everybody will have to bring a new idea on something they want to change or improve, like even if they don't know how to. So like once you start doing that, and it's because the way we've started doing it, like people start to get engaged and motivated. But like the only way you can start it is by doing it yourself and promoting it yourself. So like even like a quick round of new ideas every week or every meeting or every, so like if you, like I always like to think, like if you're 100 people company, then you have 100 ideas per day per person. If everybody has an idea, now you gotta get now you gotta get those out of and start to exchange and create the space and have other people listen to other people's takes and other people's ideas and start to understand and feel like how that like it's exponential and it allows you to be better and have ideas you haven't thought about. So like I would say like those small kind of things, like if everyone is contributing to the conversation at every scale, at every level, then like you have like that bubbly ambience of innovation. And like if you're out of that vibe, like whether the context pushes you towards that vibe or that's the only way. So like it's, I don't know, like that's a small suggestion that you can start doing, I would say.
For younger folks, for me, it's about proving that you can create a change that will be good. If your leader is not convinced, then figure out a way to convince, and I've experienced that from many people here at the company, and it's kind of fun also to challenge them, like, I'm not quite sure, and then they come with some things already they tried some things, and when they bring it to me, the idea it's already more, has a bit more shape, and it's easier to adopt.
Yeah.
So
And it's also like the competitor side of things. If you're not doing it, then maybe your competitor is. Like, that's a good hook for everyone.
I think that's a good hook. Like, you know, there's 5 other firms trying this out. Why aren't we looking into it? Yeah.
We get that.
Yeah. So I just want to be aware of everyone's time. So like, first of
Yes.
all, you know, thank you everyone for joining us. I want to make sure we don't have any outstanding questions before we close out at the top of the hour. But seeing that there are none in queue, you know, is there anything that you can leave, maybe a quick, you know, both of you can kind of chime in, like what is the biggest takeaway when it comes to well, everything that we talked about? Like what is where do you need to prioritize things as a leader when it comes to creating a culture that allows for technology to evolve?
I'm
And it
just
can be as
thinking.
simple as like giving your people a place to have a voice and listening. Sorry to like land such a big question on you at the end. Mercedes is like,
No, it's very hard because like it's hard not to go towards the clarity side of things on culture, because I think that's a big package.
So in our case, and we have this, we can only share this slide here, but like so we went as deep as rethinking how organizations are structured, because like we are a people business, like architecture is a people business, so people and culture and what happens in the intersection between people, between each person, it's as critical as every individual. So we rethought on how we are organizing ourselves in order to capture that intersection between people and try to leverage it as value. So culture for us is the very essence of what we do, and technology is only a consequence of a very well-crafted design culture that starts, ironically, and we are architects, from the very design of our organizational structure.
I think that's an amazing takeaway.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah.
That for sure. And like I was thinking of adding to that. So like do not underestimate like the in-betweens, like the in-between roles, the in-between things that happen at the office, like what's on the blurry line and on the blurry side of things. Because like my experience is that within that in-between space is where like great ideas and great initiatives can help people to embrace change. So like do not underestimate things that do not happen like within the typical boundaries of what you expect. Because like in a fluent way of organizing, those boundaries are more diluted, and it's okay for them to be, because you can bound innovation or creativity or just like new things.
Great. So we do have one question that came in that says, but I'm going to take that offline. Luz, if you can stay on a little bit longer, and then Bo, if you could transfer hosting to me, I'll just take that question one-on-one. So I'm going to take this question one-on-one with Liz. If anyone wants to stick around, is there any advice you could provide to individuals that are trying to switch from traditional firms into the AEC tech world, which I think is a little bit off topic since we were looking at how to adopt tech in architecture, but I'm happy to address that question immediately after. Thank you so much, Mercedes and Andy. I just said your full name. I rarely ever do that, Mayor and Andy,
That's
for
fine.
joining us today. Bo, did you have anything that you want to close out on the Acelab side?
No, I'm all good. Just want to thank everyone for coming today. There will be a quick survey as you leave today's webinar where you can let us know if you want to sign up for a demo with Acelab to learn some more about our platform. We have project management and product research tools for architects, so feel free to sign up there and someone from our team will reach out to you.
And innovation and materials, so beyond technology. So
Yeah.
thank you, Acelab. All right, so Bo, I don't know if you can transfer. I don't need you to stay around unless you need to, but I'm happy to.
Cool. I did make you the host, but I'm a little nervous if I leave that it'll like end the whole thing. So I'll just keep it on in the background and feel free to stay on as long as you need.
Okay, thanks. Andy, Mercedes, you're free to go. I don't mean to keep you all. And then if anyone else wants to stay along, Liz, do you want to turn on your camera so we can have a conversation? Thanks. Thanks, ladies, as always.
Thank you so much. Had a great time.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting us and everyone joining. Thank you.
I think you might, if you want Luz to be able to talk, I think you might need to go to her name and select like enable talking.
Allow, can I talk, say allow video too?
Hello.
All right. Hi. There's like 13 other people in here too. So I don't know who else is in here, but thanks everyone for staying on. What was it? So what was your question? Or you want me to address your question?
If you could address my question, that would be great.
Okay. So is there any advice you would provide to individuals that are looking to switch from traditional firms into the AEC tech world? What would you identify as the AEC tech world, I guess, first?
Like firms similar to, like, for example, Acelab, that are more platforms that help architecture firms rather than just the practice of design, the typical practice of design, typical firm, consultant firm, like that switch into like basically from